Well, good morning. I would like to talk a little bit this morning on the topic of beliefs. And so if I were to come to you today and say, I believe that this is the year in which the Buffalo Bills will inevitably win the Super Bowl. Right. That is what we call an opinion. That is not what I want to talk about today. Instead, what I'd like to talk about, so we have our opinions, but we also have worldviews. And a worldview, whereas an opinion is, based on preference, a worldview is based on my interpretation of facts that I have seen. It's based on my experiences of life. It's based on my relationships and the people that I'm close to. And where my opinions are pretty weak, like if the Bills lose to the Chiefs this afternoon, I'm gonna come back next week and be like, we're not even gonna make the playoffs. Whereas my opinions are weak, my worldviews are strong. So if this is how I see family, right? This is my family priority, or this is how I view financial security, or this is my political affiliation. This is how I see the political landscape of our world. All of these things are our worldviews. So whereas I might disregard my previous statement about the Bills, if my family starts falling apart, am I then gonna be like, you know what, family's not really that important anyways? When the going gets tough, I actually hold on to my worldviews tighter. And if one of my worldviews were to change, if my view of what financial security means, if I were to change the way that I interact with money, or God forbid, if I were to change political affiliations, it would change how I interact with people on a day-to-day basis. It would change who I am because I would change what I invest in. I would change the way that I spend my time. I would change what I prioritize. Our worldviews are close to us. And then, everybody has a foundation. And a foundation, everybody has something, whether you admit it or not, that you hold to be unequivocally, unshakably, always and forever true. It will not change. And when life becomes challenging, you cling to this truth, this one thing, like it is a life raft in the middle of the ocean. And if it were ever to be revealed that your foundation, this thing that you hold to be so true, if it were ever revealed to be false or not worthy of you building your foundation on it, it wouldn't just change who you are, you wouldn't know who you were anymore if this thing were not true. So we're in this topic on spiritual warfare. And what we see at the very, very beginning of creation, at the beginning of the Bible, is that Satan, with Adam and Eve, will not attack you with a broadsword if he can accomplish the same thing through a whisper. And so Satan whispers lies to Adam and Eve, and he has not stopped whispering lies since. And so what I want to talk about today is a lie that we are tempted to believe without even realizing it. Now, the series before this was a series through the book of Revelation. And the book of Revelation throws around this word Antichrist. And when you hear Antichrist, you think of a dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and the 666s and chips that get implanted in your wrist. A bunch of things that are opposed directly to Jesus. That's what we think of when we hear the word Antichrist. But if you look at the Greek that the word Antichrist comes from, it does not just mean opposed to Christ, but it can also mean to come in and take the place of Christ. That even a good thing could be an antichrist when it becomes the best thing or the only thing. And so what I'd like to talk about today is the lie that happens when we slowly start to believe that one of our worldviews is more important than Christ as a foundation. It looks like this. I am not opposed to Jesus at all. I think Jesus is great. But my purpose is my family. I think Jesus is wise. His teachings are good. But when this person takes office, the world will finally be what it's supposed to be. I think that Jesus is got my back, absolutely, but I need to have this tucked away just in case. And slowly, we believe these whispers over and over until Jesus becomes not a foundation, but he becomes just another worldview that is informed by our real foundation. And we never think about it as spiritual warfare. We never think about it as a lie, and that's why it's so effective. And so today I want to look at 3 areas of our lives, and within them, the worldviews that so subtly, casually become foundations, what I would call an unintentional antichrist, which I'm hoping nobody comes in from this point forward because they will not understand that phrase. Good things that we make into the best thing. So 3 areas of our lives, and kind of a question that goes with each. The first is purpose. And our purpose being, what is going to make me into the person that I was meant to be? What is my value on earth? The second one is comfort. What is going to give me hope when everything else falls apart? What can I cling to when life gets unsteady? And the last one is transformational ability. What is going to save our world? 3 areas of our lives. The first one is purpose. What is going to make you into the person that you were meant to be? What is your value here on earth? How do you find it? And the unintentional antichrist of our friends and our family. Here's why this feels so wrong when I say it, is because of course there's tremendous value in providing for and caring for your friends and offering your family the best opportunities and the warmest chocolate chip cookies. Of course, there's a friend who needs your help, who you should care for, and there's so much value in those things. And the Bible talks about the significance of caring for your spouses, of raising up your children in the way that they should go, of being a good friend, and the value of friendship. All of these things are biblical. And yet, this is what Jesus says in Luke chapter 14. If you want to be my disciple, you must, by comparison, hate everyone else. Your father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even your own life. Otherwise, you cannot be my disciple. Huh? My family is good. My friends are good. My significant other is good. So why then would Jesus come in and say something like that? And in order to answer that question, you have to ask the question again of purpose, which is, what is going to make you into the person that you were meant to be? What is your value here on earth? I was never a huge fan of poetry units in English classes because it would inevitably, the poet would say something like this: the sky was a clear shade of blue. And my teacher would say, what do they mean by that? And it could be that the poet was sad, and so they used the color blue to describe the sky. Or it could be that the poet was hopeful, and so they used this word clear to describe. Or it could be that really doesn't matter, it was just setting up the next phrase of the poem in which they say that the grass was a clear shade of green. And I was sitting there at 17 like, why couldn't the sky have just been blue that day when they wrote the poem? And I found myself again and again, I always wanted to talk to the poet because I was like, nobody could tell me what they meant by this except the person who wrote it. How am I supposed to understand this art without talking to the artist themselves? Only Jesus can help you walk in your purpose and find your value because Jesus designed your purpose and he gave you your value in the first place. This is what the book of Colossians says: Christ is the visible image of an invisible God. He existed before anything was created and is supreme over all of creation. For through him, God created everything in the heavenly realms and on earth. He made the things we can see and the things we can't see: thrones, kingdoms, rulers, authorities, and an unseen world. Everything was created through him and for him. Through Jesus, for Jesus. Our purpose and our value. And so how could we possibly find it anywhere else than by coming back to the one who designed us? Now, Kaylee is my best friend in the whole world. That's my wife, I should clarify. But she did not design me. Your friends did not design you. And so what Jesus understands is that if my purpose is found in being a father, in being a husband, in being a friend, then my children or my spouse or my friends are the ones who determine my value. And so I love doing things for Kaylee. I love doing things that will bless her, that will make her life easier, more enjoyable. And I have noticed that there is a shift that happens in me. When I go from being a good husband goes from being something that I get to do and love to do to being the place in which I find my value, the place in which this is who I am. I am a good husband. And here's what I notice. I keep doing the exact same things, the same actions of love, washing the dishes and whatever other things I can do to show her that I care about her. But quietly, internally, I begin to keep score. I'm like, well, I did this, and this, and this. Did I feel appreciated today? Now, on the surface, everything looks the same, right? I'm still doing the same things. But internally, what am I? Bitter. So the actions that were designed to be a gift become hollow. Now, I'm naturally conflict averse. You might be like that too, and you might have that same experience when you get to this place. Or you might be one of those people where you're like, nah, if they're not telling me, if they're not validating me enough, if I don't feel validated enough in this friendship or in this relationship, they gonna know. But either way, it's bitterness. It creeps up in us that we're not being validated enough by these people that we are pouring out to, that I keep loving, I keep doing, and I don't feel like you are doing enough to make me feel wanted, to make me feel known, to make me feel valued. And I think that that's your problem. And so Jesus comes in to reorient us and to say, maybe the problem is not that they don't love you enough. Maybe the problem is that you forgot how much I love you. You've forgotten what I've already done for you. You will always look for validation in other people if you forget that Jesus has already validated you on the cross. Now and forever, that was enough. And so the reason that he calls you to hold him so far above everybody else, even those who we love, is because when I return to Jesus again and again, when I look at the cross again and again, when I learn to appreciate that love and his character and his kingdom, what I experience is a humble and gracious and steadfast love. And as I come back to it again and again, it begins to pour out of me. And truthfully, if I put Jesus at the forefront of everything, if he's even more important to me than my friends and my family, he's actually gonna demand some things of me that I don't want as it relates to them. He's gonna demand that I share the truth with them when I don't want to, and he's gonna demand that I do it in love when I don't wanna do it in love. He's gonna tell me to take a Sabbath. He's gonna tell me to speak the truth and that the truth will set me free. And he's going to say, before you seek anything else, seek my kingdom. And the craziest part of this is as I am reminded again and again of who Jesus is, of his kingdom, of his love for me, he actually frees me to love and lead my family better and to enjoy them more, because no longer am I seeking my validation in them. I have my validation in him, and out of that place, I love them. Only Jesus can help you walk in your purpose. Only Jesus can help you find your value, because he designed your purpose and he gave you your value once and for all. But if you're not regularly reminded of that love for you, we always unintentionally gravitate towards building our purpose around people who cannot validate us. So purpose, right? Purpose, why am I here? The second area of our life is comfort. What is going to give me hope when everything else falls apart? What can I cling to when life seems to be slipping through my fingers in the unintentional antichrist of financial security? Now here's the truth. There is 100% comfort to be found in having enough to take care of myself and take care of my family. Who has noticed that being a human being is expensive? Taking care of other human beings, even more expensive. And again, the Bible talks about the values of stewardship, of taking care of the things that you have, of having enough to provide for your family when things go wrong. And at the same time, Jesus tells us this story. Luke chapter 12, a rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. He said to himself, what should I do? I don't have room for all of my crops. Then he said, I know, I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. Then I'll have room enough to store all my wheat and other goods, and I'll sit back and say to myself, my friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool. You will die this very night, and who will get everything that you worked for? Yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth but not have a rich relationship with God. So remember, the question of comfort is, what is going to give you hope when everything falls apart? The reason that you cannot find your comfort in your money is because there are things in this world that money simply cannot fix. If your lawnmower is 12 years old, and no matter how hard you work on it, it just doesn't seem to run, money can fix that. But if your marriage is 12 years old, and no matter how hard you work on it, it just doesn't seem to run, money can't fix that. If your child is 12 years old, no matter how hard you try, they just seem to keep falling apart again and again and again, money can't fix that. And there's an interesting thing about this story is we read that story about the man with the building, the big barns, and we think that God somehow inflicted death upon him as a punishment for his selfishness and his greed. But what the actual truth of that story is that for every single person, there will come a day and time, whether near or far, in which no amount of money can fix my body any longer, and my life on earth will end. So what does Jesus have that money does not? Jesus can give you comfort in every circumstance because what he has given to you can never be taken away. I had a conversation with a woman in the lobby here at church years ago, and I asked the casual question, how are you doing? And she was like, I'm blessed. She said, I know what it's like. I've had times in my life where I had family around me and I had money and I had all of those things. And then I've had times when I had none of those things. And what I've learned is that those things are blessings, but they are extra blessings. And that I always have the blessing, which is that God is always with me. I was like, yeah, I'm good too. That's hope that lasts. It's not the man who didn't know what to do with all of his wealth, so he built bigger barns. It's the woman who knows that even if everything else was taken away from her, even if her life was taken away from her, she has God with her always. And after Jesus tells the story about the guy that builds the bigger barns, he talks about money as it relates to worry for a while. And then he gives us the antidote to finding comfort in wealth. He says this in Luke 12, seek the kingdom of God above all else, and he will give you everything you need. So don't be afraid, little flock, for it gives your Father great happiness to give you the kingdom. We hoard our money when we are afraid that God will provide for us. And what happens if I put Jesus as the first thing that I keep coming back to again and again is that inevitably he asks me to give my money, my possessions, to things that I don't want to. He asks me to give it back to him. He asks me to give it to people in need. And then he makes this outrageous statement where he says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And here's why I've come to love that statement. As I remember what Jesus did for me on the cross, as I remember the love that God has for me, as I seek his kingdom first, and as I share the things that I want to hoard, he extends and expands my heart towards the people that I have cared for. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So every time that your treasure goes, your heart goes. And so as you give, as you follow Jesus, your heart expands, your heart extends. And he shows in the Bible and in history and in my own experiences that again and again, God can do so much more with what little I have to offer than I could ever do if I held on to it myself. And when the day comes in which money cannot help me, in which the things of my life or my death are too much, my rock holds steady because the love of God for me has never changed and it never will. Jesus gives you comfort in every circumstance because what he has given you can never be taken away. But again, if I am not regularly reminded of his love for me and his character and his kingdom, I will build my foundation on something that simply cannot last. So we have our purpose, why am I here? We have our comfort, what can I cling to? And the last thing is transformational ability. What is going to save our world and the unintentional antichrist of politics? Here's the truth. Policies matter. Policies affect real people every day, positively and negatively. And politics and laws and policies have been a part of every society for the history of time, and God himself gave laws and policies to his people in the Old Testament when he brought them out of slavery. So it's really interesting to me see then how Jesus reorients our minds as it relates to politics. This is the book of Mark, chapter 12, and there's this religious teacher who comes to talk to Jesus, and he's like, I want to know what the greatest law is. What is the most important law that God has given to our people? And Jesus says it is this: it is to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength, and it is to love your neighbor as yourself. And then it says this: teacher of the religious law replied, well said, teacher. You have spoken the truth by saying that there is only one God and no other, and I know that it is important to love him with all my heart and all my understanding and all my strength, and to love my neighbor as myself. This is more important than to offer all of the burnt offerings and sacrifices required in the law. Realizing how much the man understood, Jesus said to him, you are not far from the kingdom of God. And after that, no one dared to ask him any more questions. Policies are useful and important in establishing compliance and order. The law provided that burnt offerings and sacrifices were required by the people of Israel. But no one's heart has ever been transformed by a law. Nobody says, I followed this policy and I right away started to love God more. Or this law was changed and the next day, I loved my neighbor. See, the question of transformational ability is not what is going to establish compliance in our world, it's what's going to save our world. Your political party might be great, full of ideas for a better society, but the best thing that a law can do is to generate compliance, to generate sacrifices and burnt offerings. Jesus is the only one who can save our world because he is the only one who can transform your heart. We look to politics to save us when we forget that grace and love are prerequisites for transformation in the eternal kingdom. Jesus said, you are not far from the kingdom of God. If you want transformation, it happens through the actions of love and the gifts of grace. And where do you find those things? At the cross. At the cross, where the creator of the universe and the epitome of power was stripped of his godhood and tortured and humiliated and separated from his Father so that I might know the love that God has lavished upon me to call me his child when I don't deserve it. That's what saves our world. That's what transforms your heart. And the craziest part of it is that as I turn my eyes to Jesus again and again, he drives me back towards the importance of justice and the importance of policy, but this time without the need to ostracize or villainize those who view it differently than me. Because if the cross is the lens through which I see my world, then those people are no longer my enemies, but rather they are those who God has extended his love to in grace the same way that he did for me. And so the lens of Christ draws us to actually invite more perspectives to the table. It draws us to be more gracious in conflict. And as a result, it creates better solutions for our world. Jesus is the only one who can save our world because he is the only one who can transform your heart. But if I'm not regularly reminded of his love for me and his character and his kingdom, if I don't come back to the cross, then I will always look for my hope in our world as something that can only enforce and not transform. And so for some of us, we realize that we have built our lives on a foundation that is not Jesus, that cannot last. But we've done it for so long that we're like, at this point, how could I even get back to putting Jesus at the forefront, even if I wanted to? I'm gonna invite the worship team forward. Forward? Out. When I was in high school, I participated in our school's production of Peter Pan, the musical. At 6'2" and 220 pounds, I was not cast as Peter Pan, shockingly. Obviously, I was Tinkerbell. What I learned doing theater is that there are a lot of lines to learn. Like they come in the first day and they slap this packet down and they're like, hey, no big deal, but in 3 months, you're gonna need to have all of these things memorized and then you're just gonna go say them in front of like 1,000 people. You're like, that's 17, but I have to do my geometry homework tomorrow. And so what you do is you rehearse them. On the way to school in the morning, you're going through your thing, you're reading your lines. When you're in study hall, you're talking to the person next to you and you're like, hey, let's go over our lines together. Can I hear my lines? Can I tell you your lines? Can we go back and forth? When I'm daydreaming, when I'm supposed to be paying attention in class, I'm thinking about my lines. And then what happens that 3 months later, inevitably those lines have been rehearsed so many times that they are a part of me that when I step out onto that stage, they come out of me like it's second nature because I've rehearsed them so many times. And so my question is, what are you rehearsing? What is the thing that you spend the most time, that you think about the most, you read it the most? In the morning when you wake up, it's what you take in, it's what you listen to, it's what you process when your mind drifts casually while you're driving in your car. What do you go to think about? What are the things that you are rehearsing? What's the thing that you think about the most? And why, when life becomes challenging and pressing, would you expect anything but that to come out of you? So if we want Jesus to be the center, if we want him to be the foundation, what do? We rehearse the cross. And what does that look like? Couple quick ways that we can bring Jesus back to the center of our attention. We rehearse God's word. There's this misunderstanding to me of sometimes I think that I have to read a full 2 chapters of the Bible a day. I have to make it through the Bible in a year. And so the question is, what if instead I took a smaller portion, I took 2 verses of the Bible and I read them to understand them. And I read them over and over again. And I read them until I had read them so many times that they were a memorized part of who I am that I could recite to myself on my drive to work in the morning. Rehearse God's word. Second one is to build community that's based on Jesus. We took communion here this morning. Remembrance of Jesus, of what he did for us on the cross. What is your community? What are the people who are close to you, your small group or your close friends who are forcing you to come back to again and again Jesus' love for you, and who you are bringing back to Jesus' love for them? And then the third one is to pray other people's words. I think there's a common frustration in prayer of I don't know how to say what I should say. And I get that. So what if you prayed somebody else's words as your own? The Bible has 150 Psalms, which are songs, poems that are written as prayers to God, and they cover an insane range of emotions. So what if you went through one of those and said, this is how I feel right now. I can't articulate it, but it's already articulated. I'm just gonna use this as my prayer. Or the songs that we sing here at church. Have you ever thought about the fact that actually those are all corporate prayers? So what if you listened to one of those songs and looked at the lyrics and you prayed it as your own prayer to God? So what I'd like to do today, we're gonna throw this up on the screen, and we have time, so we're gonna practice this. I'm gonna give you about 1 minute and 15 seconds, and what you see is over here, you have Psalms, and I even attached feelings to them. Oh yeah, I would take a picture of this probably too, so that if you wanna do another one tomorrow, you can. But over here we have Psalms, right? And they have to do with the feeling that you are feeling, and you can pray that to God, putting him back at the center of your attention. In the middle, we have these rehearsing God's words. They're like 5 verses or less. Things that you can read, and you can read them again and again and again, and you can look up videos about them and search them on the internet until they become so much a part of you that when you are pressed, they come out of you. And over here, we have songs. Please do not look them up and play them out loud right now. That would be very distracting to the rest of the people. But if you want, look up the lyrics. And tomorrow, listen to the song. Use it as your prayer. So I'm gonna give you 1 minute, and I want you to choose one of these. And this morning, we're gonna rehearse the cross. And when we're done with that, we're gonna sing a song together that is a corporate rehearsal of the cross. But first, you take space, you look up one of those Psalms, you look up one of those verses, or you look up the lyrics to one of those songs, and take this space this morning to rehearse the cross. And we'll come together and sing.